Today is the 1st of June 2025, so it seems a good opportunity to read a book as we've woken up to no earthquakes, pole flips, or solar storms incinerating human civilization. We can hope it doesn't happen tomorrow either, as it's a bank holiday. Anyway, we have a nice copy of Dostoevsky's The Karamazov Brothers, translated by Ignat Avzi. It's a nice 19th century painting on the cover of this edition. And it's hard to believe, but this picture wasn't even created by AI. According to Wikipedia, this book was actually written by a human being as well. I think there is great advantage in reading anything published really before World War II, but the 19th century novel in particular is excellent for long-form thinking, as all our devices are trapping us within some immediate sensation of short-term memory and essentially making us all incredibly stupid. So I think one of the easiest things to do to resuscitate our decaying minds, the embers of our dying Western civilization, is to read old books, to see how they viewed the world, and to see that most human predicaments are exactly the same as they were the 19th century or 2,000 years ago. And if we skip ahead, there's a whole section where he's recounting the life of this Russian Orthodox monk, Starets Zazima. And the great thing for the 19th century novelist is you can bring such a character into existence where you can then lecture the audience on your ideological and theological view of society and reality. Because one imagines in the candlelit 19th century, the Wi-Fi wasn't great, so you had to read books. I mean, if you're the type of person who wrote a comment like this under a YouTube video without any paragraphs, just one endless run-on sentence, you would be thought of as a crank. But the 19th century, we can appreciate this as genius. And one can't suppose that these are even Dostoevsky's view of religion and society, but rather the characters. And at the end of this discourse, there's a very interesting little bit that I thought would be good to read, which is this: On Hell and the Fire of Hell, a mystical discourse, where he asks himself, what is hell? I thought I'd start with this, as this is just a short little chapter, and then I might read the whole thing. But if you can't bear the weight, we shall read this first, as I think it is an important question to ask. What is hell? Let us see what the great man of letters Dostoevsky has to tell us. Fathers and teachers, I ask myself, what is hell? I argue thus: it is the suffering caused by not being able to love anymore. Once in the infinity of existence, which cannot be measured either by time or space, a certain spiritual entity appearing on earth was granted the possibility of saying, I am and I love. Once and once only was it vouchsafed an instant of actual living love, and for that purpose it was granted earthly love, and with it its times and its seasons. And what happened? This fortunate creation rejected this priceless gift as something of no value. It did not love, it cast a contemptuous look and remained unmoved. Such a one, having departed from this world, sees the bosom of Abraham and converses with Abraham, as revealed to us in the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. And he contemplates paradise and is able to ascend to the Lord. But that is precisely the reason for his suffering. For if he ascends to the Lord as one who has not loved, he will encounter those who have loved and whose love he has scorned. For he sees things clearly now and says unto himself, now at last I have knowledge, and though I have been yearning to love, there will be no merit in my love, nor will there be sacrifice, for my earthly life is at an end, and Abraham will not come with even a drop of the water of life. That is, bringing the gift of earthly life again, real life as before, to quench the flames of thirst for spiritual love, that love which I spurned once upon earth, and for which I now long. There is no more life, and time is at an end. Though I might be able to give up my life for others, this is no longer possible, for the life which could have been sacrificed for the sake of love is no more, and now a great gulf has appeared between it and this existence. People speak of the physical flames of hell. I'm not going to delve into this mystery, and I fear it, but I think that even if there were physical flames, people would be truly glad of them. For I think in physical torment they might, if only for an instant, forget the far worse spiritual torment, nor can they be delivered from this spiritual torment. For they are tormented not from outside, but from within. And even if they could be delivered from it, then I think they would become even more unhappy. For though the righteous in paradise, seeing their agony, might pardon them, and in their infinite love even call to them to come and join them, this would cause them even more suffering, for it would only exacerbate the intense yearning to reciprocate with an active and grateful love, which is now no longer possible. In the humility of my heart, I think that the very realization of this impossibility would serve them finally an assuagement, for by recognizing the love of the righteous and the impossibility of responding to it, they would, by this very submission and act of humility, at last gain some idea of that practical love which they spurned on earth, and as it were, by a kindred effect. My friends and brothers, I regret that I cannot express this clearly, but woe to those who destroy themselves on this earth, woe to those who commit suicide. I think there can be no more miserable than they. We are told that it is a sign to pray to God for them, and outwardly the church appears to reject them. But in the depth of my soul, I think that one could say a prayer for them too. After all, Christ will not be offended by love. I have prayed inwardly for such ones all my life. I confess this to you, fathers and teachers, and I pray for them still each day. Oh, even in hell there are those who remain proud and defiant in spite of indisputable knowledge and the contemplation of irrefutable truth. There are terrible creatures who are in complete communion with Satan and his proud spirit. They have chosen hell voluntarily, and they are never sated with it. They indeed are willing martyrs, for in cursing life and God they have damned themselves. They feed upon their own evil pride, just as if a hungry man in a desert were to suck blood from his own body. They are unfulfilled for ever and ever, but they reject forgiveness and deny the God who beckons them. They are unable to contemplate the living God save with hatred, and they demand that there be no God of life, that God destroy himself and all his creation, and they shall burn everlastingly in the flames of their own hatred, and long for death and for non-being. but death shall not be granted them. And in that sense, our contemporary Western liberal progressive society can only seem ever more openly satanic than what Dostoevsky observed in the 19th century. Occasionally I like to watch those videos on YouTube of, what's the guy's name? John Butler, who, coming from a Christian point of view, became involved in meditation and seemed to find a way to experience non-duality. And he very simply explains that people are turned towards darkness and can turn to face the light, to let the sun stream upon their face. And that's what we see in Western society now. That people are filled with hatred and self-hatred and shame and anger at being born into this passing show of physical reality. And in it they manifest chaos and confusion and offer only connection to a hive mind. And I think in the 19th century Dostoevsky could see that all institutions were inherently corrupt by the material world, and that if Christ was to return, the church would lock him up. So the world we live in today, it's very interesting to see what Dostoevsky was talking about here, where he talks about Russia and I suppose really the Orthodox Church's view of things through the mouthpiece of this monk. So let's have a look at this. This is rather more involved, and the views contained are not necessarily mine. But let us discover how far we have travelled since this was written in the 1880s. Concerning the discourses and teachings of Starets Zosima, some thoughts on the Russian monk and its likely significance. Fathers and teachers, what is a monk? In our enlightened world, this word nowadays is used ironically by some, and by others even as a term of abuse. And things are going from bad to worse. It is true, oh yes, it is true that amongst the monks too, there are many parasites, sensualists, pleasure seekers, and impudent rogues. This has been noted by educated laymen. You, they say, are sluggards and useless members of society, living off other people's labour, shameless beggars, all of you. And yet there are many monks who are meek and humble, who long only to pray fervently on peace and solitude. But they are seldom mentioned. They are passed over in silence, and what surprise it would cause if I were to say that from these meek souls yearning for solitary prayer, Russia's salvation might perhaps spring once again. For in silence they have indeed been preparing for that day and that hour, for that month and that year. In their solitude they have been preserving Christ's image unspoiled and magnificent in the purity of divine truth, as handed down from the earliest fathers, apostles and martyrs. And when it becomes necessary, they will bring it forth to confront the sullied truth of the world. This is a profound thought. It is from the east that the star will shine forth. This is what I think about monks, but am I wrong? Am I being presumptuous? Just look at the world and at the laity, who consider they are superior to God's people. Have they not distorted the image of God and his truth? They have science, but a science wholly subservient to the senses. As for the spiritual world, the highest pinnacle of man's existence that has been rejected completely, banished with a degree of triumphalism, not to say hatred. The world has celebrated liberty, especially in recent times. And what is it that we see in this liberty of theirs? Nothing but slavery and suicide. For the world says, you have needs, therefore satisfy them, for you have the same rights as the most illustrious and the richest among you. Do not be afraid to satisfy them, nay, multiply them. Such is the present day teaching of the world. It is in this that they see freedom. And so what comes of this right to multiply one's needs? Isolation and spiritual suicide for the rich, envy and murder for the poor. For though rights have been granted, the means of material gratification have not yet been prescribed. We are assured that the longer time goes on, the closer the world draws towards fraternal communion, when distances will be bridged and thoughts transmitted through the air. Oh, do not believe in such a union of men. By interpreting freedom as the propagation and immediate gratification of needs, people distort their own nature. For they engender in themselves a multitude of pointless and foolish desires, habits, and incongruous stratagems. Their lives are motivated only by mutual envy, sensuality, and ostentation. To give dinner parties, to travel, to have carriages, titles, and slavishly devoted servants is considered such a necessity that in order to satisfy this need, people will even sacrifice their lives, honour, and sense of humanity, and if they cannot satisfy it, they will even commit suicide. The same thing is true for those who are not rich, but in the case of the poor, the inability to satisfy their needs and feelings of envy are for the present drowned in drink. But instead of wine, they will soon quench their thirst with blood, for that is what they are being led to. I ask you, are such men free? I once knew a fighter for the cause who told me in such agony that he'd nearly betrayed his cause just to get some tobacco. And people like him say, I shall go and fight for mankind. But where will he go and what is he capable of? A short burst of activity, perhaps, but he will not be able to sustain it for long. And so it is not surprising that instead of being free, people have become enslaved, and instead of serving the cause of brotherly love and human harmony, they have, as my mysterious visitor and teacher once told me in my youth, fallen into disharmony and isolation. So the idea of service to mankind, of brotherhood and human solidarity, grows ever weaker in the world, and truly it is now treated almost with derision. For how is one to shed one's habits? Whither can the bondsman turn if he has grown so accustomed to gratifying the multifarious needs which are of his own devising? He is isolated, and the world at large means nothing to him. We have reached a stage at which we have surrounded ourselves with more things, but have less joy. The monastic way is altogether different. Obedience, fasting, and prayer are now almost objects of ridicule. But it is precisely in them that the path to real and genuine freedom is to be found. I sever myself from needs which are superfluous and unnecessary. I humble my selfish and proud will and punish it with obedience. And so, with God's help, I attain spiritual freedom and with it spiritual joy. Who is the more capable of conceiving a great idea and of renouncing the world to serve it? The rich man in his isolation, or the man liberated from the tyranny of material things and habits? People take the monk to task for having isolated himself. You have cut yourself off in order to seek salvation behind monastery walls, but you have forgotten about brotherly service to mankind. We shall see, though, who will do more for the cause of brotherly love. For it is they who are isolated, not us, except they do not see it. Even in times of old, it was from amongst our brethren that national figures arose. So why should they not arise now too? These same meek, humble, and abstemious recluses will rise up and champion a great cause. Russia's salvation is in its people. Russian monasticism has from ancient times been at one with the people. If the people are isolated, we too are isolated. The people share our faith, and a non-believing politician will achieve nothing in Russia, even if he is sincere at heart and a man of genius. Remember this, the people will confront the atheist and overcome him, and there will emerge a Russia united in the Orthodox faith. Cherish the people and let them not be disheartened. Nurture them in silence. That will be your monastic challenge, for this nation is the bearer of the word of God. Concerning masters and servants, and whether it is possible for masters and servants to be brothers in spirit. Good Lord, who would deny that even the common people are plagued by sin, and by the very hour the flame of corruption is spreading downwards from above, even for all to see. Isolation has afflicted the people too. We already have kulaks and bloodsuckers. The merchant is getting greedier and greedier for honours, and although he has no schooling whatsoever, he nevertheless strives to pass for an educated man, full of scandalous disregard for ancient custom. He is even ashamed of the faith of his fathers. He consorts with princes, and yet he himself is no more than a depraved muzhik. The people are debauched by drink, which they can no longer forgo. And how much cruelty there is towards the family, the wife, and even the children, and all because of drink. I have seen even 10-year-old children in factories, weak, sickly, worn out, and already degenerate. Airless sweatshops, noisy machinery working all hours of the day, obscene language and drink, nothing but drink. Is that what the soul of a little child needs? He needs sunlight, children's games, and to be set a good example in everything, as well as some love, be it ever so little. Monks, this must not go on. There must be no abuse of children. Go forth and proclaim this as a matter of urgency. But God will save Russia, for though the common man may be degenerate and incapable of resisting the stench of sin, he nevertheless knows that his sin is accursed by God, and that in committing it he is behaving badly. Hence our people continue to believe steadfastly in the truth, to accept God, and to shed tears of compassion. The upper classes are quite another matter. Drawn by science, they want to create a just world by means of the intellect alone. But unlike former times without Christ, and they have already pronounced that there is no crime, no sin, from their point of view, this is quite correct. For if there is no God, how can there be any crime? In Europe, the people are already in violent revolt against the wealthy, and their leaders everywhere are inciting them to bloody confrontation and preaching that their anger is justified. But cursed be their anger, for it was fierce. Yet God will save Russia, as he has saved it many times before. Salvation will come from the people, from their faith and humility. Nurture the faith of the people, fathers and teachers. It is not a dream. All my life I have been astounded by the noble and genuine dignity of our great people. I have experienced it myself. I can vouch for it. I have seen it and marvelled. Yes, I have seen it in spite of the stench of sin and the wretched state of our people. They are not servile in spite of 2 centuries of slavery. They are free in manner and deed, and bear no rancour whatsoever. Nor are they vindictive or jealous. You are famous, you are rich, you are clever and talented. Good luck to you and God bless you. I respect you, but remember that I'm a human being too. The fact that I respect you without envy is an expression of my human dignity. Indeed, even if they don't actually say this, for they do not know how to say it yet, that is how they behave. I myself have seen it. I myself have experienced it. And would you believe it? The poorer and humbler our common Russian man, the more he embodies the noble truth, for the rich kulaks and bloodsuckers amongst them have already been corrupted in many ways. And much of this is due to our negligence and inattention. But God will save his people, For Russia's greatness lies in its humility. I dream about the future, and I seem to see it clearly already. For it will come about that even the most corrupt man among our wealthy will become ashamed of his riches when confronted by the poor man, and the latter, on seeing this humility, will understand and yield to him with joy, and will respond with tenderness to his noble shame. Believe me, that is how it will end. That's the way everything is going. Equality is only to be found in the spiritual dignity of man, and nowhere, save in Russia, will this be understood. If there are brothers, there will be brotherhood, and there will be no sharing save in brotherhood. We stand guard over the image of Christ, which will shine forth to the whole world like a precious diamond. It shall be, it shall be. Fathers and teachers, something happened to me once which moved me deeply. In my travels, when I was in the provincial capital K, I met my former Batman, Afanzi, 8 years after he had left my service. He happened to notice me by chance in the marketplace, recognized me, rushed up to me, and my goodness, so glad he was. He was so overjoyed that he practically threw himself at me. My God, sir, is it really you? Can it really be you I see? He took me back to his house. He had already left the army and was now married and had 2 infant children. He scratched a living from petty trading at a market stall, whose room was poorly furnished but clean and cheerful. He offered me a seat, put the samovar on, and sent word to fetch his wife, just as though my visit to his home had transformed the day into a festive occasion. He brought his children to me. Bless them, Father. Who am I to bless them? I replied. I'm just a simple and humble monk. I'll pray to God for them, but as for you, Alfansi Pavlovich, I've always prayed for you every day, ever since that day, I said, because it is with you that everything began, and I explained it to him as best I could. Poor man, he looked at me in disbelief. He could not believe that I, his former master, an officer, was sitting there before him now, looking like that, dressed as a monk, and he even burst out crying. Why are you crying? I said to him. You, whom I can never forget, should be rejoicing for me with your whole being, my dear fellow, for my path ahead is bright and happy. He didn't say much, just owed and ahed, and kept shaking his head with compassion. Where, he asked me, has all your wealth gone? I replied. I gave it to the monastery, and we now all live as a community. After tea, I was starting to make my farewells when he suddenly produced 50 kopecks as an offering for the monastery, and I realized that he was trying to slip another 50 into my hand. That's for you, he said. For a very unusual pilgrim, it may come in useful, perhaps, Father. I accepted his 50 kopecks, bowed to him and to his wife, and left in joy, thinking along the way, here we are, the 2 of us, he in his own home, I on the road, and both probably marvelling and beaming with joy, with their hearts full of happiness and musing over how God brought about this chance meeting. I have never seen him again. I was his master and he was my servant. But after we had embraced each other in love and spiritual tenderness, a great human bond was forged between us. I have thought about this a great deal, and here is what I think now. Is it so beyond the bounds of imagination that this great and simple-hearted bond could be forged between our Russian people everywhere, and in its own good time? I believe this will come about, and that the time is nigh. As for servants, I shall add the following formally. In my youth, I used to be very impatient with my servants. The cook has served up the meal too hot. The batman hasn't cleaned my coat. But I was suddenly enlightened by the observation that I'd heard my brother make in my youth. Is it fitting that another man should wait upon me, and that I should abuse him because of his poverty and ignorance? It amazed me that the simplest, the most obvious thoughts should be so slow in coming to us. One cannot survive without servants in this world, but you should arrange things in such a way that your servant is freer in spirit than if he were not a servant. For why should I not be a servant to my servant, and why, for that matter, should he not be aware of it, and without any self-righteousness on my part or mistrust on his? Why should I not treat my servant as a relative and accept him finally into my family, and to do so with joy? Even now, this could still come about and serve as the basis for the future glorious union of people, when man will not as now be looking for servants, and will not as now be making servants of his own kind, but on the contrary will himself wish from the bottom of his heart to become a servant to everyone, as is laid down in the Gospels. And can it really be just a dream that man will ultimately seek his joy only in acts of enlightenment and compassion, and not as now in brutal satisfactions, in gluttony, fornication, pride, in boasting, and an envious rivalry between one man and another? I firmly believe that it is not a dream, and that the time is nigh. People laugh and ask when this dream will come, and it is likely even that it will come. I believe, however, that with Christ we shall accomplish this. And how many ideas have there been on this earth in the history of mankind, which seemingly unthinkable even 10 years previously, nevertheless, when their mysterious time was ripe, suddenly emerged and swept over the whole earth. Thus will it be with us too, and our people will shine forth in the world, and all will say, the stone which the builders refused is become the head of the corner. One could well ask our very detractors, if our idea is only a dream, when are you going to erect your edifice and establish a just way of life by reason alone without Christ? And even if they maintain that, on the contrary, it is they who strive for unity, then surely it is only the most naive amongst them who believe this, and one can only marvel at their naivety. Truly, they are more given to dreamlike fantasies than we are. They hope to establish a just way of life, but having rejected Christ, they will end by engulfing the world in blood, because blood calls for blood, and he who lives by the sword shall perish by the sword. And if it had not been for Christ's promise, they would have annihilated one another, even down to the last two persons on earth. And even those last two, in their pride, would not have been able to restrain themselves, so the one would have destroyed the other, and then himself too. And had it not been for Christ's covenant which he made for the sake of the humble and the meek, that is indeed what would have come to pass. I was still in my officer's uniform after the duel when I began to talk about servants in public, and I remember everyone was surprised. Do you, they said, want to see your servant on the sofa and serve him tea? And I replied, why ever not, even in only once in a while. Everybody laughed then. Their question was frivolous and my answer vague, but I think it did contain a certain amount of truth. Concerning prayer, love, and contact with other worlds. Young man, do not neglect prayer. Each time you say your prayers, provided you are sincere, there will be a new spark of emotion, and along with it a new idea previously unknown to you, which will raise your spirits anew, and you will understand that prayer is education. Remember too, every day and whenever you can, keep repeating in your mind, Lord, have mercy on all who have now come before thee. For each hour, each instant, thousands of people leave this earthly life, and their souls stand before God. And many of them will have departed this earth unbeknown to anyone, utterly alone, sad and anguished, with no one to pity them or know that they even existed. And behold, even though you may not know them, nor they you, perhaps your prayer for the repose of their souls will rise up from the far side of the world and reach the Lord. How standing in fear before the Lord, that there is someone who prays even for them, that there is still a human being on earth who loves them. God too will look upon you all with more kindness. For if you have shown such mercy to them, how much more mercy will he show to you? He who is infinitely more merciful than you, and he who will forgive them for your sake. Brothers, Be not afraid of human sin. Love man even in his state of sin. For this is already a likeness of divine love, and is the highest love on this earth. Love all of God's creation. Love the whole, and love each grain of sand. Love every leaf, every ray of God's light. Love animals, love plants, love every kind of thing. If you love every kind of thing, then everywhere God's mystery will reveal itself to you. Once this has been revealed to you, you will begin to understand it ever more deeply with each passing day, and finally you will be able to love the whole world with an all-encompassing universal love. Love animals. God gave them the beginnings of thought and a sense of untroubled joy. Do not disturb this. Do not torment them. Do not take away their joy. Do not oppose God's intent. Man, set not thyself up above the animals. They are without sin. It is you in your grandeur who is fouling the earth by your presence on it and leaving your foul mark behind. Alas, this goes for nearly every one of us. Love children in particular, for they are too without sin, like angels, and they live to be a balm upon our lives and to cleanse our hearts and show us the way ahead. Woe unto him who abuses the infant. It was father and firm who taught me to love children, always so kind and silent. As we journeyed around, he used to spend the few kopecks collected along the way on cakes and sweets and distribute them. He could never pass children without being deeply affected by them spiritually. Such was the man's nature. Some thoughts are bewildering, especially when one is confronted by the sins of people, and one asks oneself, is it better to resort to force or to rely on humility and love? Always say to yourself, I shall conquer by humility and love. Having made such a decision once and for all, you'll be able to conquer the whole world. Humility and love is an overpowering force, the strongest there is, and there is no other like it. Every day and every hour, every minute, even watch over yourself to ensure that you have not sullied this precept. You have walked past a small child. You have walked past in anger, foul-mouthed, ill-tempered. Perhaps you may not even have noticed the child, but he has seen you, and the vision of your unsightly and profane aspect has maybe lodged in his defenseless little heart. You did not know him, but you may have sown a bad seed in him which will probably grow, and all because you have behaved badly in front of the small child, because you have not nurtured a watchful, active love within yourself. Brothers, love is a teacher, but you must know how to go about acquiring love, for it does not come easily. One achieves it through relentless and protracted effort, because one must love not casually, just for an instant, but to the very end. Anyone at all is capable of casual love, even a felon. My brother, young though he was, asked little birds for pardon. That might seem senseless, but he was right, because everything is like an ocean. Everything flows and intermingles. You have only to touch it in one place, and it will reverberate in another part of the world. Granted, it may seem mad to ask birds for pardon, but how much better it would be for the birds and the child and every other creature around you now if you yourself preserved your human dignity even a little. Everything is like the ocean, I tell you. Then in a kind of ecstasy driven by an all-encompassing love, you would start to pray to the birds, and you would pray that they too should forgive your sins. Cherish that ecstasy, however absurd it may seem to people. My friends, ask God for joy. Be as joyful as children, as the little birds in the sky. Do not let human sin confuse you in your mission. Do not be afraid that it will stifle your endeavor and prevent it coming to fruition. Do not say, sin is powerful, sacrilege is powerful, the foul world is powerful, and we are lonely and helpless. We will be overwhelmed by this foul world, and it will not allow us to accomplish our virtuous endeavour. My children, shun such despondency. There is but one salvation for you. Take yourself in hand and be answerable for the sins of all men. My friend, this is actually true. You need only make yourself sincerely answerable for everything and everyone, and you will see immediately that it really is so, and that it is you who are actually guilty of the sins committed by each and every man. Whereas if you blame one another for your own sloth and weakness, you will end up by becoming imbued with satanic pride and will turn against God. This is what I think of satanic pride. It is difficult for us on earth even to comprehend it, and therefore it is easy to fall into error and to accept it, thinking at the same time that we are doing something grand and wonderful. In fact, while we are still here on earth, many of the strongest feelings and emotions of our nature are beyond our comprehension. But do not be misled by this, and do not think it may serve as justification for your actions, for the eternal judge will hold you to account only for that which you could comprehend, and not for that which you could not. You only need to make sure of this yourself, to see things as they really are. And from then on, stop raising objections. Indeed, on earth we wander as if lost, and had we not the precious image of Christ before us, we would lose our way completely and perish, as mankind did before the flood. There is much on earth that is hidden from us, but in exchange we have been blessed with the secret sense of a vital, mysterious bond linking us to another world, a celestial, exalted world. And in any case, the roots of our thoughts and feelings are to be found not here, but in other worlds. This is why philosophers say that the essence of things cannot be understood on earth. God took seeds from other worlds and sowed them on this earth, where he cultivated his garden, and all that could grow sprouted. Yet all that grows owes its life only to its sense of the mysterious intermingling with other worlds. Should this sense within you either wither or be destroyed, that which grows within you will also die. Then you will become indifferent to life and even come to detest it. Such are my thoughts. Can one sit in judgment over one's fellow man on keeping the faith to the end? Remember especially that you may not sit in judgment over anyone. No man on this earth can sit in judgment over other men until he realizes that he too is such a criminal as the man standing before him, and that it is precisely he, more than anyone, who is guilty of that man's crime. When he does become aware of this, then he may be a judge. However mad this may appear, it is the truth. For if I had been righteous myself, there might not be a criminal in the dock before me. If you are able to take upon yourself the crimes of the criminal standing before you, whom you are condemning in your heart, then do so immediately and endure the suffering for him. Allow the man himself to go free and unrebuked. And even if the law itself has appointed you to be his judge, act as much as possible in this spirit, for he will go away and pass a judgment upon himself that is far more severe than yours. However, if after you have shown him your good will he remains unmoved and even laughs at you, don't be deterred by this either. It means that his time has not yet come, but it will come by and by, and if it doesn't, never mind. If it is not to be him, someone else will come along who will show greater understanding than him, and will give himself up to suffering and pass judgment upon himself, and truth will have been served. Believe this implicitly, because therein is contained all the hope and all the faith of the saints. Be forever active. If you remember at night as you fall asleep, I have not finished that which I should have done. Arise immediately and finish it. If you are surrounded by bad-tempered and insensitive people who do not want to listen to you, fall down before them and ask their forgiveness, for verily you too are to blame that they do not want to listen to you. And if you can no longer talk to the embittered, carry on serving them in silence and in humility, never losing hope. And if everyone abandons you, and even if they cast you out by force, then alone as you are, fall down upon the ground, kiss it and soak it with your tears, and the earth will bear fruit from your tears, even though nobody has seen or heard of you in your solitude. Believe to the end, even if it should come to pass that everyone on earth falls into error, and that you alone remain true. Make your sacrifice even then and praise the Lord, you who are the lone survivor. And if you come together with one other person like yourself, there you have a whole world, a world of vibrant love. Embrace each other in tenderness and praise the Lord, for his truth will have been accomplished if only in just the two of you. If you yourself sin and repent of your sins even unto death, even of just one accidental sin, rejoice for another, rejoice for the righteous man, rejoice that even though you have sinned, he has remained righteous and has not sinned. If men's evil should arouse your indignation and cause you unbearable distress, even to the point of making you feel vindictive towards the malefactors, fear this feeling more than anything. Go at once and seek torments for yourself, such as you ought to suffer were you yourself guilty of the crime. Take these torments upon yourself and endure them, and your heart will be appeased, and you will understand that you too are guilty, for you could have been the one without sin and the guiding light unto the malefactors, and you are not. And even if your light shines forth and you observe that people are not seeking salvation by the light which you are casting, you should remain steadfast and not doubt the power of heavenly light. Know ye that though they have not yet sought salvation, they will be saved later. And if they are not saved, their sons will be, for your light will not die, even though you yourself may then be dead. The just man will pass away, but his light will live on. Salvation is always found through the death of the Saviour. The human race is loath to accept its prophets and chastises them, but people love their martyrs and will venerate those whom they have tortured to death. You, however, are working for all mankind. What you do is for the future. Be sure never to seek reward, for even as it is, your reward upon this earth is great enough, the spiritual happiness which only the righteous can attain. Fear neither the rich nor the powerful, but be wise and always preserve your dignity. Know the limits, know the times, learn to observe them. When you are left on your own, pray. Be ready to throw yourself on the ground and smother it with kisses. Kiss the ground. Love insatiably, ceaselessly. Love everyone. Love everything. Seek this exaltation, this ecstasy. Flood the earth with tears of joy and love those tears. Do not, however, be ashamed of this ecstasy. Cherish it, because it is a gift from God, a great one, vouchsafed to the few, the chosen ones. And what is hell? It is the suffering caused by not being able to love anymore. And so Dostoevsky wrote in the 1880s, some 30 or 40 years before Orthodox Christian Russia fell to the Bolsheviks, and all that entails. And so clearly he could see, and one could say was Christian communal living, some variation on the hive mind of communism. But I don't think so, as what he understands, as all mystics do, is that you must have free will to turn towards the light or the darkness. And those in the dark are filled with such self-hatred. They can never imagine a return to the light, as the kingdom of heaven is within.